Good afternoon, everybody. I'm starting to speak because I'm told by my handlers that if I start to speak, the rest of the people will come in from the outer regions there, the netherworld. And I see a few trickling in, but I'm going to start. So welcome back to this room for the final session of Excellence in Government 2011. And welcome to our speaker, Dr. Shelley Metzenbaum from OMB, who is, I believe, the leading thinker and practitioner of government performance management and measurement in the country today. And we're delighted to have her here today, and I'll say a few more words about her in a minute. First, I'm also delighted to welcome members of her team who are here with her today, including my old friend from many years, Michael Messinger. Michael and I were there at the beginning of this conference 15 years ago in 1996. And I'm going to ask for a slide to be shown that is kind of a unique artifact dating from that era. And it was the Reinvention Revolution Pledge. The conference title was the Reinvention Revolution, and there was a big poster that people were asked to sign. Al Gore, who was in charge of the reinvention movement, Vice President Gore, as you may remember, was there at the conference, led the conference, and his signature is seen up there just above the left part of the blue box in the lower level of the blue box. Also in the picture is the cover that we published, the government executive cover that year in 1996, Reinvention Revolution cover, and some of us still have the mouse pads that we produced from that cover. So that's an interesting early artifact. Here we are 15 years later. I think the art and science of performance measurement has advanced quite a bit since then, and Shelley Metzenbaum is the latest messenger of the movement and leader of the movement. In OMB, her title is OMB Associate Director for Performance and Personnel Management. She is not on the budget side of OMB, and I learned in our lunch from our luncheon speaker that you need a visual aid as you're trying to communicate here. So here's the budget side. You may see that it's in red ink, and it's pointed downward. She is rather on the performance side of OMB, and here's what that looks like. It's got a sunny yellow arrow pointed upwards as we improve performance in the federal government. Shelley follows. I told her I would say a few words about what we've learned in the conference so far by way of setting the scene for her speech. Sean Donovan today, Secretary Donovan, talked about setting priority goals, the importance of that in a tough budget environment and measuring them. He talked about his use of HUD-Stat to do so. He talked about the game changer reviews he was doing with his staff to advance management progress toward key agency goals. We've had a panel moderated by Pat McGinnis on goal setting and performance management with leading officials from the Navy and the Department of Health and Human Services. A panel moderated by Paul Posner dealt with how to deal with declining budgets. And a panel on communications, the importance of telling your story about the good work that the federal government is doing in these times was one that I moderated this morning. So Shelley has had a long history in performance management, dating from her work at EPA quite some number of years ago. She was an informal advisor to the people who were doing performance management. She and Pat McGinnis would meet with Robert Shea, people who were doing performance management during the Bush administration. And of course now she's in a prominent position leading this movement at OMB. She's written widely on performance management and measurement in the public sector, and I can't tell you how pleased I am that she's joining us here today. So welcome to the stage, Shelley.
Thank you, Tim. I tell you, it's been great having you as such a great, not only supporter, but communicator on performance management all these years. It is great to be here today. It's great to be here with so many people who share my passion for and commitment to excellence in government, who share the belief that government matters profoundly for the well-being of the people of this country, and who understand how important it is that government performs at the highest possible level. Also, Tim, I want to congratulate you. I think it's the 15th birthday of this great Excellence in Government conference. And for 15 years, this conference has brought together people who care about improving government performance and want to talk about best practices and support each other. This conference has been part of a lasting movement that started with the National Performance Review, but probably even before that with Alice Rivlin and even Bob McNamara. And it's moved through the Bush administration, and now the Obama administration has a very strong commitment to improving performance, to using goals, measurement, data, analysis, regular reviews. Some of you today, who are here today, some of the speakers, and those in the audience, have been part of this change, not since the McNamara era, but maybe since the National Performance Review. Others of you are coming to it a little bit later. But let me say it's great to be here to talk with you all. President Obama believes strongly that government can and does make a difference. And because of that, he's issued all of us in government a real challenge. If we believe that government can make a difference in people's lives, he's told us, we have the obligation to prove that it works by making government smarter, leaner, and more effective. He has challenged us to deliver a government that works, and in these very difficult fiscal times, to deliver more for less. If you're in this room, you've probably already taken up that challenge, and you know that delivering more for less has a lot of dimensions. It is about cutting waste and reducing unnecessary costs. It's also about making hard trade-offs among priorities. And it's about delivering more mission for the money. Vice President Biden is spearheading the administration's effort, the campaign to cut waste. He wants to cut waste and costs and drive efficiencies across government. Launched this effort last June. And federal agencies have stepped up to the plate. They are responding in innovative and exciting ways, tapping new technologies to look for spending anomalies and new ways to save, enlisting assistance from the public to identify questionable patterns so that it triggers focused follow-up questions, and we in government can sort of follow up and find problems and opportunities to improve outcomes, and sharing information and best practices across the government. We're tapping these new technologies, and for example, to enhance our audits, to find improper payments. One way we're doing this is by mapping payment patterns. On recovery.gov, for example, you can drill down on a map and find exactly where each grant or contract is being spent, where that money is being sent. What's this done? It's empowered citizens to review who's getting the federal dollars in their neighborhood and then to report suspicious activities or behaviors. Well, so during the Recovery Act, we actually saw this happen, where local citizens started to use recovery.gov, and they would submit tips to the Inspector General's hotline at the Recovery Board to find improper payments. We're now tapping new technologies also, not just to map and to enlist citizens, but to work smarter across government agencies. In 2010, for example, the Department of Education set up a new line application process for students who want student aid. This online application systems let students go directly to an IRS website while they're applying for student aid and transfer information from the IRS website directly to their application. That makes it a whole lot easier for students and their parents to apply for a student aid. It also turns out to bring the error rate down. So it's helped us bring the error rate down in the last year to 2.7%, when it was 3.1% the year before. That's a win-win solution. Better for the students, lower cost for the government. We're also building technology partnerships with the private sector to reduce improper payments. The Social Security Administration recently completed the nationwide rollout of its electronic partnership with financial institutions. When fully implemented, Social Security expects this public-private partnership to save $20 for each dollar spent. Agencies are also getting smarter. I talked about how we're letting citizens help us look for patterns in our spending. Agencies are also getting smarter about looking for patterns in their spending to find ways to save. The Department of Commerce, for example, gathered information from across its vast conglomerate of organizations about cell phone use patterns. Not very, high tech, not very fancy, but important cell phone use patterns. It asked some very simple questions. Where did it have more cell phones than it had people? Not a hard question to ask. Where were there more cell phones than people? It also asked another question. What rate is each organization paying so that it could compare rates across commerce? By shutting down the unused lines, when it found that there were more cell phones than there were people, and most people didn't need more than one cell phone, and by comparing rates across the organization, Commerce quickly realized $500,000 in savings. And it's going after millions more in savings by getting better discounts on office supplies with bigger buys. It's also going after smarter printing practices, more two-sided printing, no color printing when black and white will do, fewer desktop printers. Strategic sourcing for small package delivery, making sure they're using the best price delivery for everything that they're shipping. It's just it's managing the costs across the whole organization. It's also looked at strategic sourcing for computer purchases. So when it looked at all the computers that were being purchased across Commerce and looked at it as one big purchase, it realized that if it could get a bigger buy, might get it a better buy. And sure enough, just by starting to gather that information, one of its existing vendors came in and gave it a deeply discounted price on all future purchases. Demand management, strategic sourcing. That's what it's called. It ain't sexy, but it does save. And Commerce is not alone. FEMA similarly did the same thing with cell phones. In fact, at one point, they just turned them all off to see which ones they didn't get complaints about, right? Paying more attention to the utilization rates. The Department of Homeland Security is also doing strategic sourcing, yes in the printing, yes in the computers, following where we're going government-wide on strategic sourcing, but also looking in areas more unique to DHS, uniforms and ammunition. Bigger buys can often be better buys. And last week, building on these successes, the President took action to spread these best practices across the government. He signed an executive order instructing agencies to reduce overall spending by 20%, limiting their spending on travel, on the number of information technology devices that are allotted to individual employees, stopping unnecessary printing, shrinking the executive fleet, and then, of course, everyone's favorite, stopping the use of taxpayer dollars to buy swag. The EO does not tell agencies how they're supposed to hit that 20% target. It wants the agencies to look at each other's experience and learn from that experience, adopt the best practices, and also get a little competitive, compete with each other, innovate, so we can find ways to deliver more for less. But it's not just about finding waste, cutting costs. It's also about pushing productivity gains. And that's another way we're getting better, more for less. Data center consolidations, cloud computing, electronic filing. We're going at this in multiple ways. The administration's Federal Data Center Consolidation Initiative is shutting down data centers that we don't need and consolidating and optimizing the ones we do. Why? Because the federal government quadrupled the number of data centers between 1998 and 2010. And it operated these, but on average, the servers in the data centers were only using 27% of their computing capacity. At the same time, they were paying full cost to house, power, and cool the data centers. So we've set some goals in this area also, and agencies are on track to close 962 data centers through 2015. 472 of them we hope to close by the end of next year. More for less. Cloud computing promises similar savings, but the shift to cloud computing has another benefit too. It basically makes it easier for federal agencies to keep up with newer innovations, newer technologies by going to the cloud, where the cloud provider will be doing the innovating. And it doesn't demand as much of federal officials to keep up with the latest technology, but lets us tap the innovation of the competitive marketplace. Electronic filing. Agencies are also achieving more for less by increasing their electronic filing activities. They're getting far more people to transact with the federal government online. The Department of the Treasury, for example, set out to increase electronic payments, collections, and savings bond transactions. Increase the electronic versions of those by 33% by the end of fiscal year 11. It wanted to get an electronic filing rate for individual taxpayers of almost 75%. When fully as implemented, Treasury expects its move to electronic processing to save it over $500 million. And it's making real progress. The IRS received nearly 142 million individual returns. Over 69% of returns filed electronically in the 2010 filing seasons. That's up from 66% in 2009 and saved over $10 million. Easier access for the public, lower costs for the government, better for the environment. Win, win, win. That's smart government. Social Security administration is on a similar path. It wants to increase online benefit applications to make it possible for more people to conduct business at a time that is of their convenience. And they want to reduce their own processing time. Again, real progress is being made. By the third quarter of fiscal year 11, 40% of retirement applicants who could file online did so. That was up from 11% the year before, from 11% to 40%. It's also trying to do the same for disability applications for those who can file online for disability applications. They're a little tougher, but the electronic filing rate is up to 32% from 24% for the same period the prior year. Social Security has pulled this off in a way that's actually thrilled their customers. It's consistently at the top of customer service scores, and its online application website ranks at or near the top of all public and private sector websites surveyed by the American Customer Satisfaction Index. 98% of the respondents rate their overall satisfaction with Social Security as excellent, very good, or good. Electronic filing at Social Security is smart, but it's really going to be important in the future when nearly 80 million baby boomers are expected to apply for retirement. In addition, Social Security is seeing real effects from the recent recession, where the number of people filing for retirement, filing for disability, is gone way up above their projected application levels. In the last 2 years, retirement, dependent, and survivors claims were up 9%, and disability claims were up 21%. From what was originally projected. The electronic filing is helping them make that a much more manageable caseload for them to handle. More service at a lower cost per person served. More for less. But to get the most mission for the money, cutting waste, smarter spending, better service quality, they're all essential. Strategic sourcing, demand management, boosting productivity, that is how we want to operate. Opening up government, being more responsive to customers, that is how we want to operate. But we also need to keep our eye on the prize. We must make sure the people in our agencies keep connected to the people and communities they serve across America. And we must make sure we make a difference, a positive difference in their lives. To do that, we want people in federal agencies to be clear about what they want to accomplish so they do not get stuck in the rut of doing what they've always done. We want agencies constantly working to identify and promote effective practices and fix or eliminate those that are not. We want them constantly asking, are we getting the job done? Is this the smartest way to deliver? Or is there another approach that might accomplish more with the resources we have available? Thriving children, a robust economy, healthy people, clean water, clean air, safe communities, sustainable communities, serving our veterans as they have served us, effective engagement in other parts of the world. These are the challenges we face as a nation. These are the challenges we in the federal government are expected to take on, and we are making a difference. They are complex challenges, but we gnarl with them, and we make a difference. Let me highlight a few areas of real progress in delivering more mission for the money. In the energy area, federal agencies are helping American homes and businesses become more energy efficient and reducing our dependence on oil. Over the last 2 years, the Department of Energy supported energy conservation in over 500,000 homes, saving those energy bill payers over $400 a year, more than half, reducing their energy consumption by more than a third. This work has also reduced greenhouse gas emissions 1.5 million metric tons. HUD has similarly reduced energy consumption at another 120,000 HUD-assisted units. At the Department of the Interior, they're also contributing to energy development in critical ways, developing new renewable energy sources. Interior has permitted over 6,000 megawatts of new renewable energy capacity on Interior-owned lands. Fully developed, this will power over 1 million homes. They had never done this before. They set a goal that they wanted to permit renewable energy sources on Interior land, and they have now permitted 6,000 megawatts. At the same time, the Department of Energy is speeding development of the next generation of U.S. batteries for plug-in electric vehicles. Similar progress is being made over in education. Americans cannot lead without the most educated, competitive workforce. Nations that out-educate us today will outcompete us tomorrow. Understanding this, the President set a goal that by 2020, the United States will have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world. And to do that, we're tackling challenges in our pre-K, K-12, community college, and college system. One such challenge was fixing the inefficient student loan program that previously existed. On March 30th, 2010, the President signed the Student Aid and Fiscal Responsibility Act, under which the Department of Education would originate, rather than just guarantee, all new student loans, all new student loans. The Congressional Budget Office estimated this switch would save taxpayers more than $60 billion over 10 years. The Education Department, I'm glad to say, delivered this transition on time and successfully. Within 6 months of the law's enactment, 97% of all domestic schools, accounting for 99% of all borrowers, were able to provide direct loans. This fundamental change in the student loan program happened with minimal disruption to schools or to students getting financial aid at one of the busiest times of the academic year. More mission for the money. That's only one small piece of our efforts to deliver better using performance-based delivery mechanisms. We're pursuing other changes to create a performance-focused, evidence-based education system across the country, partnering with states, locals, and private sector delivery partners. If you're not familiar with the approach we're taking in early childhood and K-12 education, I urge you, get familiar with it, because performance-focused, evidence-based changes being adopted in the education area are paving the way for other parts of government. Race to the Top grants are being used to enlist eager performance partners at the state and local level who are willing to commit to rigorous standards and high-quality assessments, who are willing to build better data systems to help their school leadership, their superintendents, their principals, use the data to inform decisions and improve instruction. The grants are being used to identify delivery partners who are committed to attracting and retaining great teachers. Why? Because the evidence tells us that good teachers are critical to education success. And they're using the grants to find delivery partners who are willing to adopt the most promising evidence-based practices and to innovate to try and turn around the lowest performing schools. Education developed a 3-tier funding strategy also, Invest in Innovation, or I3 for short, to encourage 3 complementary but distinct performance-improving practices among its state, local, and not-for-profit delivery partners. Scaling up, validating, and developing new effective practices. First, I3 offers scale-up grants. These promote adoption of the most effective practices identified by the evidence. It's a pretty simple idea, frankly. Search for the best practices, then promote their adoption. It also offers validation grants to support replication demonstrations. Again, it's not a complicated idea. I3 grants are available to test promising practices that have worked in one place, in a different place, or a different situation. And so we can find out if they work in other places and they're worth promoting for scale-up adoption, spreading much more broadly. And finally, I3 offers smaller development grants to support the testing of new high-potential practices so we can continually innovate and get better and smarter. It's worth noting that applicants can apply for any one of the 3 grants. They don't have to go to a different door, a different grant program. They could apply for any kind of one of these 3 kinds of grants depending upon their need. We didn't make it a one-size-fits-all. It's also worth noting that the Education Department decided that it was going to give preference to applicants with demonstrated strong past performance to reinforce the department's commitment to performance-based delivery. So if you're already practicing in a much more performance-focused way, using goals, using the data, measuring it, analyzing it, using it to improve, if there's evidence that that's the way you operate, guess what? We want to provide even more funds for you so that you can continue to improve. HHS is similarly taking a much stronger performance-focused approach in its early childhood education grants. Last week, HHS published new regulations that will, for the first time, require all low-performing Head Start grantees that fail to meet a set of rigorous benchmarks to compete for continued federal funding. The new rule introduces unprecedented and smart accountability mechanisms into the Head Start program. Head Start is a top priority for this administration. It helps children from low-income families achieve their full potential. And in turn, it helps our country build tomorrow's workforce. Today, Head Start and Early Head Start help nearly 1 million of our nation's most vulnerable children and families. It works, but it could work better. To make that happen, over the next 4 years, the Department of Health and Human Services will review the performance and program quality of all Head Start grantees. Those that don't meet the quality benchmarks will be required to compete for continued funding. The others will continue to get what they'd always gotten, which was year after year continued funding. Any low-performing Head Start grantee will have to compete for funding if they have deficiencies discovered during on-site reviews, fail to establish and use school readiness goals for their children, or if they score below a quality threshold on a valid and reliable observational measure of teacher-child interventions. In addition, grantees will be required to compete for federal funding if their state or local license has been revoked, if the Head Start grant has been suspended, or if fiscal and management issues prevent them from properly managing federal funds. Balancing this, cutting waste, fiscal responsibility, and more mission for the money. Based on our analysis of recent program data, it's estimated that 1/3 of all grantees will be required to recompete for continued funding under this new rule. This and other reforms will direct taxpayer dollars to programs that provide the highest quality Head Start service and ensure Head Start programs provide the best early education services to children in every community. Performance-based grants, more mission for the money. Federal agencies are also beginning to test the power of goals and measurement to create powerful change-driving performance partnerships. The Department of Health and Human Services is using the power of well-framed goals to enlist external allies to achieve better care at lower costs through its Partnership for Patients program. The partnership has two specific goals. By the end of 2013, keep patients from getting injured or sicker by preventing hospital-acquired conditions, reducing it 40% compared to 2010. Reaching this goal could save 1.8 million could reduce injuries by 1.8 million and save more than 60,000 lives over 3 years. The second goal is helping patients heal without getting a preventable complication when they transition from one care setting to another. This, they expect, will reduce hospital readmissions by 20% compared to 2010, resulting in 1.6 fewer patients not requiring rehospitalization within 30 days of discharge. You can tell that HHS dug into their data to figure out what the causes of problems were, what was making people get sicker, what were the preventable factors, where could they make a difference? And these are two areas where they decided we're going to focus. These preventable complications when you're moving from one place to another, these hospital-acquired conditions, we can prevent those. Why are we letting those happen? HHS has reached out to leaders of major hospitals, employers, health plans, physicians, nurses, and patient advocates, along with state and other federal government agencies, to sign them up for partnerships. Already, they've gotten more than 2,000 hospitals and 4,000 other partners to sign up and pledge their commitment to deliver on these goals. The power of a goal to enlist others who can share that goal with you and try and deliver on the goal. The Partnership for Patients will save lives, it will reduce injuries, it will reduce costs and wear and tear on the people in our communities, and at the same time, we expect it will save us tens of billions of dollars in Medicaid and Medicare costs. Performance partnerships, healthier people, lower cost, more mission for the money. And federal agencies continue to make progress supporting the small businesses that boost our economy. To increase access to SBA programs available at local banks and branches across the country, getting out to the people, to the community, the Small Business Administration nearly doubled the number of active lending partners from 1,900 in December 2009 to 3,500 today. So in just 2 years, nearly doubled the number of lending partners. Loans approved by active lenders reached nearly 20 million in fiscal year 2011. Up from 12 million in 10 and 9 million in 2009. So how are we delivering more mission for the money? In truth, it ain't sexy, but it is smart. It's performance-focused, and it's evidence-based. We've gone back to the basics. Management 101. Set goals. We've asked agencies to set goals that are ambitious, so they encourage innovation, but realistic. And we've asked them to focus on outcomes, or on activities or intermediate outcomes that clearly support them. So we keep our eye on the prize. Measure progress. Search for and spread successful practices. Develop and measure pilots when we cannot find effective practices. And manage using the measurement. What do I mean by that? We need to constantly ask if what we're doing is working and whether or not it can be done better or for a lower cost. And when something's not working, we need to understand why. We need to dig down into the data and constantly ask why. And sometimes we need to pick up the phone and ask the people on the ground what's happening and find out, why is this happening? And then make changes and see if the adjustments change the outcomes that we're keeping our eyes on. We need to do this, and so we can fix the problems when things are not working. We're also guided by a 21st century sensibility that taps into new information and communication technologies, and that let us dig more deeply into the data, to network, to use transparency, to enlist expertise and assistance, and to boost our accountability to the American people. Across the government, we're using goals to provide clarity of purpose, communicate our objectives, and focus our efforts. We're using government-wide management goals, such as reducing improper payments and data center consolidation goals. We're also using agency-specific and cross-agency goals, some focused on outcomes to deliver more mission for the money, such as fewer homeless veterans, states more prepared to handle health emergencies, and cleaner water, using smarter agricultural practices and more targeted enforcement. And some goals that are focused on organizational efficiency, such as customer responsiveness goals or e-filing goals for Treasury and Social Security. And right now, in addition to working on the new set of agency priority goals, we're working on the first set of federal cross-agency priority goals focused on the missions that matter. But we're not letting goal setting just be a paper exercise. We expect agency leaders to set their priority goals and manage progress at least quarterly, holding constructive performance reviews. You heard Secretary Donovan talk about that this morning, I believe. And we're seeing these reviews take place across government by the leadership of the agencies across government. Some agencies have opted to focus only on agency priority goals, while others have worked with their bureaus to set priority goals for each bureau and run constructive performance reviews every quarter on the bureau and the agency priority goals. We are not mandating one size fits all, but we're allowing adaptation to organizational culture. At the same time, we're making sure these meetings are happening. A few federal agencies are calling their performance progress reviews, their constructive performance reviews, STAT meetings. They're borrowing from the term CompStat from the New York City Police Department computerized statistics. And they're using it to describe these frequent data-driven performance reviews that helped the New York City Police Department drive the crime rate down across the city. And it's helping police departments bring down crime across the country, and it's even being used in other parts of the world. Other agencies a few federal agencies have called their reviews STAT sessions. You heard about Secretary Donovan and the HUD STAT sessions. Other agencies have given it other names. The Food and Drug Administration calls it FDA Track, and others aren't naming it. They're just doing it. Just a few months ago, the Chief Human Capital Officers group, the Organization of Chief Human Capital Officers, had one of their quarterly meetings, or one of their regular meetings. They meet monthly, but they have a special meeting every fall. And at that meeting, they invited an expert to come in and talk about performance stat, what he describes as performance stat, which is taking the CompStat idea, which then went to Baltimore as city stat, Maryland as state stat, Washington State as the government management and accountability project and performance effort. He calls this performance stat, and he studies performance stat, and he talked to the CHICOs, the Chief Human Capital Officers, about performance stat. Before he started talking to them, he asked them to raise their hands and said, how many of you have heard of CompStat or performance stat? 3 hands went up. He then he explained what they were doing, he talked about why this was a powerful way to manage. And then he finished his talk, and afterwards, one of the Chicos came up to him and he said, "Oh, when you asked if we'd heard of CompStat or Performance Stat, I didn't raise my hand. But we've started doing that in my agency." So we haven't labeled it. Constructive performance reviews is the biggest label we've given it, but we haven't labeled it because we want agencies to adapt it to their culture, not doing this as a compliance exercise, but realizing that this is good management, good, smart management. We are seeing, when you start to see the Chicos have someone come in talking about performance stat, you realize the change is happening. We are seeing the agencies dig deeper into their data in preparation for these formal and informal reviews. And they're starting to look for patterns and know that you look for anomalies, the things you didn't expect, unexplained outliers. And we're seeing the analysis lead to smarter questions, smarter follow-up questions, smarter initial questions, so that the agencies can find performance and productivity improvements. Why aren't all the vouchers that are being put out in the community, why aren't they all being used? Why are the infection rates going up or down in one hospital more than in another? We're also seeing more agencies initiate evaluations and literature searches to complement what they cannot learn simply by analyzing performance data they regularly collect, because where they can't control is for outside variables, where they want to know more than what they're learning from their performance data. And we're seeing growth in interagency working groups sharing best practices. One, for example, is made up of those who staff the chief operating officers for these quarterly data-driven reviews. Another has started to bring folks from benefits processing agencies together. I'm going to call out Wilmer over here. You want to raise your hand if any of you want to know more about the benefits processing working group? She's one of the initiators. And we're watching, and I would say what we're seeing with the benefits processing working group and with this other working group on running data-driven reviews, we've seen the size of the group grow as more and more people are hearing about, wow, that's a helpful group of people. And they're doing some amazing stuff, helping each other, learn from each other's experience, sharing tools. It's pretty exciting work going on. It's not newsworthy, but it's really important. We're watching this emphasis on mission, on measurement, on management, bring down stovepipes. Yesterday, a working group of the Labor Management Council, made up of agency Chicos, again, the chief human capital officers, and union leaders as well as deputy secretaries. But this working group, which was Chicos and the labor union leaders, they were asked to make recommendations to improve employee performance management, the employee performance reviews and appraisals. That group came back with a set of recommendations which will be available to the public pretty soon. That group came back with a set of recommendations that started with an emphasis on organizational mission-focused performance management. They recommended an employee management framework that they dubbed GEAR, which stands for Goals, Engagement, Accountability, and Results, that says start with the mission, measure mission first. And now 6 agencies, Veterans Affairs, HUD, Energy, Labor, Coast Guard, and the Office of Personnel Management, have agreed to pilot this GEAR framework, bringing the Performance Improvement Officer and the Chico together to work. If this set of recommendations had been developed by a set of performance improvement officers, this wouldn't be very interesting, wouldn't be a surprising story. What's remarkable is that the GEAR framework is the product of the chief human capital officers and labor union leaders working together. It's hints of the stovepipe starting to disappear as we transition to a performance culture. Federal agencies are filled with people who have chosen a profession of public service. They want to make the world a better place. We want to make the world a better place. For most federal employees, seeing their work make a difference is the strongest motivator. So we need to make sure that employees can see the connection between what they do and what they're trying to accomplish. We need to connect the people in government more directly to the people we serve. What we do in the federal government is incredibly important. And this administration is working hard. Everyone in the federal government is working hard to make sure that we are conscientious stewards of every taxpayer dollar we spend. The American people rightly expect no less from us. That's why we must embrace and deliver on the President's challenge to make the government smarter, leaner, and more effective. More for less, more mission for the money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shelley, for that rousing end of our day. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And in the spirit of more for your money, I want to let you know that we have a great reception planned right behind this blue curtain over here, and you're all invited to come and meet your colleagues, meet many of the speakers and participants today, and most importantly, you can hobnob with the editors of Government Executive, Tom Shoup and Tim Clark, who have been great MCs for the day. Please join me in giving them a round of applause for the day. Thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you at the reception.